CoCo Crew Podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. If you are serious about your podcast hosting needs, you should check out Cyber Ears. Whether you are a podcaster, a radio host, a musician, a narrator, an audiobook author, or simply a school, church, corporation, or anyone else with an audio recording that needs to be hosted or distributed, you should check out cyberears.com. Unlimited bandwidth, fast, reliable, and rugged servers with no hidden fees. Cyber Ears, your audio, your terms.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. CoCo Cruisers, welcome back to episode 73 of the CoCo Crew Podcast.
All right, 73.
I, of course, am John Linville, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, of course, Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John, and everyone listening to this podcast.
And, of course, Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, CoCo Cruisers.
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Feeling good?
Feeling great. Warm weather's here. It's all
been
good.
Working hard on his personal projects and stuff. I know he's tired, and but he's here to help us along and get through the month, huh? Very good. Well, speaking of getting along, the time keeps moving. We're up to about 3 months away from Tandy Assembly. Well, that's going to be a big time deal there, right? I know. I'm excited.
Yep, it's coming up fast.
Yeah, all kinds of retro goodness, retro Tandy goodness, and especially Tandy CoCo goodness. Going to be good stuff.
in person.
In person, yeah, that's right.
No virtual.
Very good. Actually be able to shake hands probably, for at least some of us. And hopefully we won't freak too many people out if you're still a little timid, but it should be a good event. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Of course, 4 months, another month after Tandy Assemblies will be the November edition of CoCo Fest. Sounds like plans are underway for that and making progress. A little bit tight for travel in the fall this year, but maybe we'll make it. It's hard to say. We'll see. Should be cool though. All right. What about what are you guys up to? That's retro and CoCo. Up to anything good these days?
I haven't been doing too much CoCo actually. I've been actually pretty busy with work, but I'm getting caught up now, so I'm going to get back into it.
Yeah, I've been doing more research into CoCo history over the past couple of months.
Yeah,
that sounds fun.
At old, some old magazines. That's not unusual, but some old users group newsletters and that sort of stuff. There's always a few gems to dig out there. It's been fun. Not a lot of real project work, I guess, but I've got some vacation booked up, and that's usually how it's been part of my vacation time. So hopefully I'll find something to do. That'll be good. I didn't mean to skip you, Mike. Did you have anything going on project-wise, or are you busy with real-world stuff?
I'm busy with real-world stuff.
Yeah, I kind of
in the process of buying a house and moving, so that's a big-time suck. Although I look longingly at the CoCo. I haven't had time to actually spend any time on it.
Yeah, well, at least you can look around and figure out the right space to put it in. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm going to have plenty of space, a big step up in space, so looking forward to that.
So,
and you create those commercials each month, so.
Well, that's true, yeah. Well, you have to count the time spent on the podcast, because otherwise it's easy to do nothing but podcast stuff.
That is a fact, yeah.
Yeah.
What about acquisitions, eBay or other stuff? I know Neil's had some complaints about eBay lately, but I don't know if that extends to his acquisitions. Pick up anything good lately on eBay, Neil?
I picked up, well, not on eBay, but on the Kijiji Marketplace. I was looking for those Roland sound synthesizers, those modules, the sound canvas things they call them.
Oh, yeah.
So I picked up two of them, an SC55 and the classic MT32.
Nice.
Yeah, and they actually do work on the CoCo. You hook it up through MIDI. Sounds pretty nice.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Cool. Very exciting.
Do you have a MIDI interface, or just doing that through Bitbanger?
Through the MIDI interface.
Okay.
Can't remember which one I have. It's in the white box. I don't think there's even a sticker on it.
There's been a couple of variations, but they're all the same, basically. So.
Yeah, they all work the same.
Well, that sounds cool. Mike, how about you? Pick up anything recently?
Not a thing.
Sort of the same story?
Yeah. I can't buy stuff. I've got to move it if I buy it. So
you just have it shipped to the new address. That's all. Oh man, yeah. I picked up. I found this. Well, I don't know about a source. I found a type of ink cartridge that I think is correct to fit the CGP 220.
Whoa.
Yeah, cool.
I've had some good luck acquiring a couple of those. I haven't actually drug out the CGP yet, but I figure what I need to do, well, I'm not sure what I need to do then, but I'm imagining taking it apart and blowing dust out of it and probably having to replace some rubber tubes or something like that. Learn more about how inkjet printers work, and I really want to know.
Yeah.
So it may be a longer term project, but
yeah.
I did pick up a box with a couple of rolls of paper for the CGP 220. I guess they made a kind of extra absorbent paper for sucking up the inkjet stuff.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, they did.
So, who knows if that ages or how well it ages? I don't know, but I saw a box for I don't know, $10, $15, something like that. I said, well, I'll try it. If I get around to running the printer, at least I can say I tried the right stuff, right?
For sure.
Any luck in locating black toner for that?
I actually did find that.
Cool.
It's pretty hard to find. You kind of have to wait and hope. I had. Who knows? They kind of shake like they've got liquid in them, but who knows? It might be the last 3 drops in the bottom, and everything else is a dry, crusty black powder on the inside. Who knows? But.
Well, whether you get it working or not, I think it's worthy of some video. If you
you should
print something out, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, we'll have to try that.
I would love to see that printer just print even one more line. Just it's been so many years.
So
that was my favorite printer.
Well, my
produce some pretty stuff.
Yeah, my arteries are pretty clogged, and I'm still going.
Just have to put some alcohol in it, I think, is what it turns out.
There you go.
But anyway, well, we'll see. Hopefully that'll work out. But if nothing else, it can be project number 743. Well, anyway. Well, that's probably enough to get us started. So why don't we bank that and then take a little break, and then we'll be back with some announcements.
After more than a year of lockdowns, it's time to start anew. It's time to rejuvenate. It's time to assemble. Tandy Assembly is go for 2021. Whether you're a fan of the TRS-80 Model 1 or the Tandy 3000, the MC-10 or the Model 16. If you're a fan of Tandy and Radio Shack computers, Tandy Assembly is a place for you. It's time to learn. It's time to share. It's time to assemble in Springfield, Ohio, on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Visit tandyassembly.com for details and hotel reservations. It's time for discovery. It's time for fun. It's time for Tandy Assembly.
All right, CoCo Cruisers. Now we're back with some announcements. You are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We, of course, are available on Twitter with the Twitter handle of @CoCo Crew Podcast. That's @CoCoCrewPodcast. If you'd like to send tweets, feel free to tweet at us. We may even tweet back. We are, of course, also available on Facebook with a Facebook group, and it's called the CoCo Crew Podcast. Very original. That is 4 separate words, of course. Let's see, we are a podcast, so along with the RSS feed available at CoCoCrew.org, we are, of course, available through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and, of course, for those that don't want to do a normal podcast download, you can stream the show through Spotify, also through Stitcher, and we're, of course, available on TuneIn. TuneIn, of course, is a service used by Alexa. So if you feel like it, you can just say, Alexa, play CoCo Crew Podcast, and we should start playing. Let's see. We have been taking our audio podcast and doing a little conversion of it to a rudimentary video form and making that available on YouTube. So the link is in the show notes here for the playlist, but you can find the shows on YouTube. The one real advantage to listening or watching on YouTube is that YouTube's pretty good about being able to add subtitles to our shows. So if for some reason you have trouble with the accents, or maybe you just get a little older and maybe they can't hear quite as clearly as you'd like to, or maybe you're a native English speaker, whatever reason you might benefit from reading subtitles, they are available if you want to check out the show on YouTube. We are, of course, a member of the Throwback Network. This is a list of retro-themed podcasts, many of which relate to retro technology or otherwise relate in some way or another to 80s culture, 80s pop culture, that sort of thing. So if you're caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. We are also listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub, which is also a list of similarly themed podcasts. In this case, the theme is 80s technology or old computer technology or old games. So you'll find podcasts relating to old video game systems and old computers from the 80s, that sort of thing. So again, if you are caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew Podcast is hosted by CyberEars. If you have a need to host audio on the internet, whether it be your own podcast or something for your church or synagogue or mosque or your own business or whatever else you might have, we recommend that you check out CyberEars, where you will get your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out and talk or type at the host of the CoCo Crew Podcast via email, we have some addresses set up that you can use. The first 3 will reach all of the hosts of the show. So those are available as show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's at CoCoCrew.org. We also have podcast, PODCAST, at CoCoCrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. If you want to reach one of the hosts individually, for whatever reason, then we have separate addresses available for those for the individual hosts. I'm available as John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org. Neil is available as Neil, NEIL, at CoCoCrew.org. Mike is available as Mike, MIKE, at CoCoCrew.org. And we've still got Boise listed. He is available as Boise, BOISY, at CoCoCrew.org. Hopefully he'll be back before too long to join us for our recording pleasures. At this point, we would like to announce events coming, mostly in real life, which is a nice turn of events that's been turning around. But first on the list for now, we still have Kansas Fest, which is still an all-virtual event this year. It's Kansas Fest 2021, 16-bit virtual edition. This, of course, is an Apple II themed show. that said, it's a good group of guys. If you don't mind having another Zoom call for your weekend or whatever, then you should check out Kansas Fest coming July 23rd and 24th of 2021. Moving on from there, coming in August 7th through 8th of 2021, we have VCF West, which will be held at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. If you are on the west coast of the United States, we recommend that you check out this event where you will see lots of cool retro computers and maybe some nifty stuff, even have speakers and that sort of thing. So, should be a good event. VCF West is probably the original VCF event from back when everybody started to become interested in retro computing. So, let's see, check that out. So, moving on. So August 20th through the 22nd in 2021, we've actually got two events listed for the same days. There's a good reason, because they're both being they're co-located. So first we've got the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. This is the Southern Fried Gaming Expo, features more than 250 arcade and pinball machines, dozens of new and retro console systems, a massive tabletop library, RPGs, wrestling, music, tournaments, a vendor expo, exciting panel sessions, guest speakers, and so much more. That'll be held at the Marriott Renaissance Waverly Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think I'm planning to be there. I think Mike's planning to be there. We got a hoodwink or kidnap Neil to get him across the border, but
count me in.
It'll be a cool event. So same days. We also have the Vintage Computer Festival Southeast 8.0 2021. And it's at the same location, Marriott Renaissance Waverly. That's in Atlanta, Georgia. So this will be more along the lines of a standard retro computing event. Speakers come hear firsthand accounts of events in computer history and informative technical presentations. Exhibits are presented Saturday and Sunday. You'll find computers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, from PDPs to Commodores to Apples. And hands-on activities will have a chance to let your inner engineer out. Very popular feature of a festival is a chance to create your own electronic device. We have kits available for purchase for everyone from complete beginner to those already handy with a soldering iron. And, of course, consignment. We'll have a consignment area as part of the show. So anyway, if you're in the southeastern part of the United States, highly recommend that you make your way to Atlanta in that third week of August, August 20th, 21st, and 22nd. That's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And should be a big event. And maybe if you're lucky, you bump into me or Mike or Boise or maybe even Neil. So let's see, moving on from August. Now September 11th and 12th, 2021. We got the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest 16. This will be held at Waterford Banquets in Elmhurst, Illinois. Fortunately, the website still says under construction with a nice 1993 era construction sign or whatever. Not a lot of other information. Can just speculate that there'll be lots of old computers and lots of old computer geeks. Could be a fun event. I haven't decided. I may try to make that one. Just a whole lot of travel this fall for the various events. But could be a cool event. What about you guys? You think you might make it to VCF Midwest?
I'd like to. If I can get over, I'll be there.
Don't think I'm going to fit that one in this year myself.
No. Well, we'll see. It would be cool to make it. But if you're going to make one of all these events, the one you should make is the ones October 1st through 3rd of 2021. It's Tandy Assembly 2021 being held in Springfield, Ohio. We're Back Tandy Assembly 2021 is scheduled for October 1st through 3rd in Springfield, Ohio. Attendees can now pre-register. Guess I need to register.
Yeah,
we do.
I need to do that too.
We see exhibit registration is now open. There's a call for speakers. Definitely would like to have some speakers, especially people with CoCo topics. If you have a CoCo topic you'd like to speak at Tandy Assembly, please reach out to me or Mike or Neil or say something on the show page or the Tandy Assembly, whatever. Reach out, we'll find us. We'd love to hear from you. It should be a big event. Hope to see some real CoCoMANIA at this event this year. All right, let's see. A week later, October 8th through 10th, we've got the rescheduled VCF East 2021. I think that show is continuing to march along for those dates. Yeah, October 8th through 10th says what it says on the web. Should be a cool event held up in Wall, New Jersey at the Info Age Science Center. Could be a lot of old computers and old computer geeks. It's a good group of fellows. Definitely, if you were in the northeastern part of the United States or thereabouts, then try to make your way to VCF East. Could be a cool event. November 5th through 7th. This is if you're in the northern part of the Midwest. Midwest Gaming Classic. What is it? The Midwest Gaming Classic is a trade show featuring 150,000 plus square feet of retro and modern home video game consoles, pinball machines, arcade video games, tabletop RPGs, computers, tabletop board games, crane games, collectible card games, air hockey, and that's just the start. Should be a cool event to go to, do some various forms of gaming, lots of cool stuff. It is being held at the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Could be a good time to go, get you some brats. Take your brats, get some brats. Could be a fun
event. Cheese curds.
Right. Then you get some cheese curds. Yeah, exactly.
That's good stuff.
Of course, November 6th through 7th, an overlapping event that you may have heard of, the last Chicago CoCo Fest, being held at the Holiday Inn, Elk Grove Village, Illinois. This was the original CoCo event, got us all together in the first place. Some changes in the club. Hopefully it's still being done well. I know Tony Pedraza has returned to his role as part of the organizing group. So expect it'll be a similar sort of event to what I've had in the past. So it should be good, other than the fact it'll be, November in Chicago. It could be a little cold.
You never know.
Although Neil tells me he's putting on some special shorts if he can get across the border. He's got his shorts and his net shirt so that he'll be cool enough. Anyway.
Last November, I was actually doing that. We had a pretty warm November. Hopefully it's like that again.
So, anyway, we'll hope there'll be a good event. Lots of CoCo activity there, of course. So, got one more announcement there. It's coming this week. Got an email on the VCF Mid-Atlantic mailing list. They're already announcing VCF East 2022 dates for April 29th and 30th and May 1st. So it's good news. We're already getting some dates coming in for 2022.
That's great.
VCF is moving back to an April time slot. I understand that the Glenside folks have a date in the traditional April time frame for 2022. I don't have it on the list. Somebody should send me a reminder. So hopefully, maybe we're going to finally shake off some of this COVID stuff and get back to our normal, very important retro computing lives. What do you think?
I'm for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
But one way or another, it's going to start in October in Ohio with Tandy Assembly.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, those are our announcements for this month. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with some news.
Since 1994, Cloud9 has made cool stuff for your color computer. Now Cloud9 is proud to announce the 2MB Triad Plus memory expansion board. The Triad Plus works in two ways. Purchase just the Triad Plus board to expand your Color Computer 3 from 128K to 512K of RAM. Or add the new Protector Plus MMU to access the full 2 megabytes of static RAM aboard the Triad Plus. And the Protector Plus MMU utilizes full buffering to protect your CPU. Unlike previous 2 megabyte memory expansions for the CoCo 3, The Triad Plus operates seamlessly without the need for special patches, configuration, or workarounds. Games like Donkey Kong Remix and Sierra Adventure games simply work without hassle. And the Triad Plus will reduce your CoCo's power consumption and heat generation. The Triad Plus and Protector Plus MMU, only from the innovative engineering of Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
Whew. All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for the news.
All right, our first one out of the chute this month is L. Curtis Boyle. Nitrous 9 EOU 6.1.0 has been released. So the Nitrous 9 EOU project continues to progress. I don't know if they fixed this. When I click on the link for the release notes, it just goes to a blank page for me. I think he mentioned that there's some issues with that link, but hopefully that'll be working by the time you get to it if you're wanting to see the latest enhancements. So it looks like it's supporting 6309, 6809, and Gimme X versions with the some of the FPGA CoCo versions being supported as well. So definitely check that out, and go to the Nitrous 9 page. They got some colorful screen snaps. That's a cool, easy way to get into OS 9. If you've been afraid of the command line, you can get your feet wet with a nice GUI on the EOU version of Nitrous 9. So definitely check it out.
Yep, definitely an active project and well representative of the CoCo community.
I recently checked that out, that version actually that you're talking about, and it's quite nice. There's a lot of software in there too. Just they've
got it jam-packed.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, and it really is easy to use. I mean, it's a one big GUI.
Problem is you just got to find a color mouse.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Well, I got my 2-button right here, so. All right, our next one is from friend of the show, Mr. Jim Gary. I've made a few aesthetic changes to Computing Now Poker. So he's made some updates to this poker game. Looks pretty neat, up to the normal high standards of Jim Gary. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, he really knows how to make good use of the screen.
Yeah, he does. He's amassed a huge library of stuff for the MC10, so well done.
Very good.
Our next one is from John Laurie. 80-column mode on Color Computer 3 via assembly language. This is a video. This is a nice video because he's really just walking you through how you can set the Color Computer into 80-column mode for assembly language, and also covers essentially doing the same thing from BASIC to test it out before you commit to putting it in assembler code. So a good tutorial, and it's nicely confined to just that. So educational and well done. Good video. Definitely should watch this.
Yep, very good, John. People often complain that there's not enough resources for how do I do exactly this thing in assembly language or whatever. So at least you can add this one to your Rolodex of things that you want to do in assembly language. Somebody showed you how to do it.
Yep. All right. Our next one is from Jamie Cho. Increased number of blocks used for levels of and objects, number 7. And I think this is...
it's a pull request on GitHub where he's contributing to DinoSprite.
That's it. That's what I was trying to think of, is DinoSprite. So adding some features to DinoSprite. Those mostly about compiler options and adding, to add features to DinoSprite. So Jamie's done some cool things with DinoSprite.
That's great to see he's supporting that still. I remember the first presentation at CoCoFest a while back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real key. You can open source whatever you want, and if nobody ever touches it, it might as well be written in ink on a piece of leather or something. Somebody actually adopts it and uses it and extends it a little bit, supports it. It can be a really useful tool. it would be nice to see people make better use of Dynasprite for their own experiments in gaming and that sort of stuff.
Yep. Now here's one that should be near and dear to your heart, John. It's from Blake Patterson. Full motion, double high-res video playback on the Apple IIe. Yeah, this is cool. This is essentially what you were doing back in 2013 on the CoCo.
Yep. Well, no, just like you said, it's on the Apple II. They are making use of the CFFA 3000 card, which is a little bit unobtainium now, but it's kind of like the Apple II equivalent of a Super IDE. So they're able to load videos off of compact flash. One thing that's kind of cool about the technique, as I understand it, is part of the technique, the video data that's stored on the card, rather than being some version of a video frame, they're actually loading 6502 assembly language code that, when executed, does the drawing that you want to do rather than just the data, so you don't have to interpret the data. Saves them a few cycles and gets them a little extra performance. Kind of considered doing something like that back with the CoCo vid some time ago, but never could quite figure out if it was worth my my time to recode the conversion tools to do that, if I'd actually saved myself anything, So it's a good way to blow up your code for sure. Meaning bloat it. But somebody was making an observation that you've essentially got these videos are essentially multi-meg Apple II programs. So that's pretty cool that they've made a use for that. So anyway, it's cool technology, and like you say, kind of near to my interest, or at least some of my past interests. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and a nice video available on that link as well, so you can see it in action. And I immediately thought of the challenges of syncing up the audio and the video that you had to go through. So, yeah, they're doing it in a slightly different way, but results are good.
Yep, very good.
Well done.
You know, you and me, we've been together for a long time. And when you're working so hard, things can get a little hot. And you've got to find a way to cool it down. Cool down your color computer with the CoCo Cooler from REM Industries. It brings down the operating temperature to ambient, regardless of accessory load. Reduces temperature of the entire computer, not just the SAM chip. Easy 1-minute installation, and it's just $39.95. And now offering the CoCo Cooler 2. It's the same price and the same fit for the color computer too. Don't let your color computer get too hot. Cool it down with the CoCo Cooler.
For fastest service, send money order or certified check. Add $2 shipping for continental U.S. Add $4 shipping for Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, and APOs. Add $15 shipping for overseas. Add $3 for 220 to 250 volt model. California residents add 6.5% sales tax. Will ship COD on USA shipments only. All merchandise shipped from stock. CoCo Cooler is a product of REM Industries Incorporated, Chatsworth, California.
All right, I'm up next here. My first news article is from Pierre Surratt. I have modified the DOS Plus 5.0 Extended so that it is compatible with Ed Snyder's Mega Mini MPI. That's the 4-slot MPI he has created. So it looks like Pierre has made it work. Modified the code here, looking at some of the changes.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the issue was or whatever. I mean, I know just like, the STC DOS for the CoCo is essentially a CoCo style DOS that's been modified to run with the CoCo STC hardware. Right. The Dragons have their own DOS, and so they have, in this case, DOS Plus that's been modified to run with the CoCo STC. So I'm not sure what it was about the Mega Mini MPI that was interfering there. I know the hardware addressing of the Mega Mini MPI is all kind of slot-based for the various features, so maybe it has something to do with the way he's programming the slots.
Yeah, it looks like it detects the presence of STC in a floppy disk controller as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what you're mentioning. Well, either way, that's cool. I mean, gives it more compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's good work, Pierre. All right, my next news article is from GDC at YouTube. It's a YouTube video, and it's titled, "It's Still Emulation. Saving Video Game History Before It's Too Late." Now, I haven't checked this video out yet, so I apologize for that. Pretty cool. I just checked out the headline here of what they talk about in this video. The recap of the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I got enough of it that, yeah, I think it's just sort of a philosophical case. It's kind of a while we fight sort of video. But talking some about, video game preservation and, and popular these days to have these kind of retro-themed video game products, but they're sold to the masses, and a lot of those are basically, the emulators, just that run on the new hardware, but the games themselves are ROMs running on an emulator. And I think he's talking some philosophy about, about emulation and maintaining emulators and what benefit does it provide for the industry and for historians and that sort of stuff. Anyway, if you have an hour or whatever to kill, it's a good way to kill it.
I mean, that's a good point. I just recently picked up a TurboGrafx Mini, and I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, this is kind of a cool little toy, but I mean, it's basically just all emulation, right? It's just ROMs on there. I mean, you could modify it and, add your own ROMs in there, and that's cool. All right, my next news article here is from Jack Evanick. Hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. This was a really cool article. You sent me this one a while back, John. It's called "How Pitfall Builds Its World," and that's, of course, the Pitfall on the Atari 2600, written by David Crane, and it just talks about how he was able to pull this off on such limited resources. It blows my mind, actually.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's procedural generation based on a kind of a static random number generator, LFSR, linear feedback shift register. So, that's the trick, is those, computer algorithms for generating so-called random numbers typically aren't really random, at least if you know what the number before it was. You can predict what the next number will be, but you then take those values and assign them to aspects of, building a screen for your game, then you can have a whole lot of game screens, and you just pick the right number to start with so that you get the order you want. It's a cool technique for sure.
Yeah.
You'll probably make better use of it in the CoCo world for a variety of styles of games that could, have that sort of technique applied.
Well, that's what I was wondering, right? Because, I mean, obviously the CoCo has a lot more power than the 2600. Oh, yeah. So if you use this technique on there, I mean, you could pull off some different possibilities we didn't have before.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a great article or blog. I'm not sure what you call it, but either way, it was. Check out that link if you get a chance. All right, next news article is from Darren Ottery. I was wondering whether there are plans to implement MCX32SD functionality into any of the MC10 emulators.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be handy.
I think the short answer is no. But kind of included this mostly for the discussion. I thought was worth seeing some of the discussion inputs or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's not unreasonable, I would think, for something like the MCX32. I think you can effectively emulate an MCX 128 with some of the emulators, but I think you might have to do tricks here and there. Right. But it's a nifty add-on to the MC10 that has put a little extra gas in the tank. For sure. So it might be worth seeing that represented in the emulators too.
To help development.
Yeah.
Well, that's some good wishful thinking right there, and could be a good project for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my next news article is from a friend of the show, Jim Gary. He's got another game converted called Maxit. This game was originally a Commodore PET game, and then he has done the conversion on the TRS-80 MC-10, of course, but the one he went from is it's a variation from the IBM PC, so it's an old DOS, it looks like a DOS version that he's converted from here. That's
and it's
amazing.
cool that it can be 2-player or you can play the computer, so that's nice features too.
Yes, he got both. Yep. It's another game to check out for your MC-10.
There you go, exactly.
Did you know that the average business person receives 190 pieces of information each day? Is your business or organization struggling to coordinate and track important tasks and events? Then you need Calendex, the automated computer calendar. Calendex is easy to use. Just enter due date and information on an electronic file card. Calendex starts reminding you of upcoming events a month in advance. And Calendex will keep reminding you until you tell it that the item has been taken care of. The Calendex chain of command feature allows each member of your group to have a personal ID. Calendex will report seriously overdue items up the chain of your organization until they are taken care of. Use Calendex every day and always know what tasks are coming due. Never miss important deadlines. Feel secure that everyone is up to date. Keep a permanent record of activities. Experience the power of Calendex for yourself. For a limited time, Calendex for the color computer is available for only $35. Calendex from Grantham Software Division, the automated computer calendar.
All right, let's move on. The next item is this entry is from Jerry Stratton and his blog. His blog with the odd title, Mimsy Where the Bar Grows. I have no idea what that means. It's probably a reference to his favorite book or something. But let's see. He's got an article here titled Basic Tokenization Examined. And so he goes into some detail about how basic programs are stored on, old computers in general, certainly old computers using variations of Microsoft Basic, and in particular, he's talking about extended color basic on the color computer. There are some interesting details on how that's done, and if you aren't already familiar with how that's done, it's definitely worth a read through his blog. It's not too long. Some good information, but basically, the idea is when you store basic, when you write a basic program on an old computer, it doesn't just store it quite like you wrote it. And partly this is to save space in memory, and partly is to make it run a bit faster. So it processes the keywords into values that it can more easily recognize as well as program pieces, and does special things with how it encodes the line numbers and other things like that. So it's information that's worth knowing, and you should, like I said, especially if you're not already familiar with it, you should go and check it out. Could be helpful, even if you're just somebody who wants to write assembly language code that might interface with BASIC or whatever. Definitely good to know. So thank you, Jerry. Okay, moving on. So this is from Jeff Wood. This Bitwise comparison test. I tried the following 6 programs on different variants of Microsoft BASIC. Not surprisingly, not all Bitwise operations were the same, even when using the same core dialog of Microsoft BASIC. So basically, he has several variations of a short program, a little for loop that do a variety of logical operations, I think maybe the reason why some of these may have differed, he said they're bitwise. They're basically logical operations, but I think in some of the versions of BASIC he's using, they may not be bitwise operations at all. They may be purely logical. Either way, sometimes the implementation, the actual implementation for, say, Color BASIC is kind of a mix in some ways. I mean, it is, it actually does bitwise operations, but because of the way they represent the numbers, most of the bitwise combinations end up being interpreted the same as they would be if they were purely logical, but maybe not always. I don't know. It's worth some investigation if you're if you're interested in the corners of BASIC, shall we say. It's a kind of thing you might try, and especially if you have different retro computers available to play with, you might take a look and see what the differences are and how you might exploit them. Definitely worth knowing. So thanks, Jeff. And that's from the BASIC Programming Language group on Facebook. Okay, so another Jim Gray game. This one was an acronym. I'm not sure if you're supposed to say it out loud or not. You can try to say it out loud. It'd be something like Prestavba. Let's see. You'll probably have to read some of the other links here, but if you want the whole story. But basically, it's a somewhat tongue-in-cheek anti-Soviet text adventure that came out of 80s, Cold War Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia, I guess it was then. And it's been translated to English and now been ported to the MC10 by Jim Gary. So another Jim Gary game, very cool. Check it out. Should be a good way to spend some time. If you look, there's actually a couple other links there in the show notes. There's an Iron Curtain Adventure link there to Jim's blog, so there'll be some more information there about the source of the source of the game and things he's done to support it. And then there's another link that's from Aaron Reed, who has a more in-depth story on the origins of the game. I guess originated on the ZX Spectrum, or a clone of the ZX Spectrum, which was somewhat more available in the Eastern Europe of the day, probably because the ZX Spectrum was the size of a small notebook. So if you need to smuggle a computer into the country, the size becomes an issue. So easier to smuggle a tiny computer than a big one. Anyway, it's pretty lengthy entry at the second link there, the one from Aaron Reed, but I think it's worth reading. So take your time, check it out, and enjoy some Cold War nostalgia and the story of it was kind of heroic because, people really got punished for speaking, and some of them very severely. So they have a lot of stuff. My understanding is a lot of stuff in this adventure that'll say, I don't have the example in mind, but they'll make sort of backhanded references to, to the Soviet stuff not working, because of the capitalists, or somehow blame it on someone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, could be an interesting piece of software to play with, so I encourage you to check it out. All right, let's moving on. So it's from David LaMonica. It's Retro Magazine World number #07-EN English edition. That's probably what the EN stands for. Retro Magazine World 07 EN is out now. It appears to be a PDF with a retro themed content and available for you to read. So take a little break and download your free copy is what it says. So if you got some time, you want to check out something somebody's put together about retro stuff, well, there's their free advertising. So check it out. It was found out in the Dragon 32 group, so there should at least be some Dragon content. Maybe it translates to the CoCo as well.
That's cool.
All right, let's see. And this one comes from Simon Jonason. I thought I'd post a code for my 2-voice inherent sawtooth player. So there you go. Appropriately called BZZZ.SM, so buzz.sm. Anyways, so you're looking for some code that demonstrates how to make some music, or at least some noise on the CoCo. Here's Simon helping you out. And then if you look, there's a second link that says, for the sake of John Laurie, runs on CoCo 123. I think John asked for pre-built binary version because he's having trouble with LWSM. So there you go. It's the same program, just in binary form. So
It's Christmas in June.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Build performance into your system with OS 9 software tools from Microware. Unix-based, multitasking, modular, and versatile. These key features are some of the reasons why more 6809 computer manufacturers have selected OS 9 as their standard operating system than any other. OS 9 has been put to the test by thousands of users in almost every conceivable computer application in business, science, industry, education, and government. Choose from powerful development tools such as OS 9 Pascal Language Compiler, the most complete and versatile Pascal available for the 6809. CIS COBOL Compiler, ideal for most demanding business applications featuring ISAM. Basic 09, Structured Basic Interactive Compiler, fastest and most comprehensive full basic language available for the 6809. And the C Language Compiler, complete implementation of the Unix version 7 C language, includes integer, character, signed, unsigned, float, and long data types. For more information, contact your computer supplier or contact us directly at Microware Systems Corporation, 5835 Grand Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa.
Unix is a trademark of Bell Laboratories. CIS COBOL is a trademark of Microfocus Incorporated. OS 9 and Basic 09 are trademarks of Microware and Motorola Incorporated.
All right, we have another one. We're packed with Jim Gary entries this month. Well, we generally are every month, but this one's really cool. This is called World Geo. Starts with, it's kind of a tour. It's educational. It starts with a tour of the planets. It's got some really cool animation to it. I particularly like the rotation of the Earth. It starts off kind of at the solar system and then zeroes in and talks about things like, why do we have day and night, and has animations that go with that, and which direction. And then there's at the end of it, the program quizzes you on what you've learned. So yeah, it's very cool. You should definitely grab this one if you got an MC10 or an emulator, and it's a fun one. And if you've got children or grandchildren, they'd probably enjoy walking through this as well.
Yep, it should be fun. Check it out. Thank you, Jim.
All right, this next one is from Darren Ottery. It is Screen Edit is my text SG editing tool for the MCX32SD. So this is another program you can use to, plot out what you want your screens to look like. Also for the MC10, for the MCX32. Pretty neat, good tool if you're wanting to develop on the MC10.
Yep, becoming a platform unto itself.
It is. Finally getting some love for the MC10.
Yep.
All right, we've been following this one a little bit, I think. This is from John Whitworth. A few hours spent reworking the DMSX2 Plus board, hopefully very close to a production board now. So this is a video board for the Dragon 32 that supports output for the MSX style graphics, of course, equivalent to what was on the MSX series of computers. So development continues on that. He's made some changes to the board, dropped some things that weren't working so well, add some things that are better. This is kind of cool. So this would give some better output from your Dragon 32. Yeah,
it's definitely a way to experiment with the graphics chip. I want to say he has. I thought there was a capacity for the sound chip as well, which is an AY3 89 something sound chip. Anyway, it's just like part of the hardware from an MSX, blended with the CPU complex from a Dragon or a CoCo. I assume it'll work on a CoCo. But kind of a cool option there for people who are looking for that kind of blended architecture or blended retro nouveau, something like that. Looks like he's got a SCART connector on the end of the board, so you just plug into your SCART monitor with a SCART to SCART cable or something like that. kind of cool. There's a second link there that he's actually, it says that link said he was working on finalizing the design or whatever. And the second link says he sent it off to fabrication. So you may be able to contact John if you think you want one of those boards.
Yep, pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been following that for a while too. It looks great.
All right, this next one is from Pose Motion at itch.io. It is Macroutine is a music macro language, MML, editor. Easily create retro-style music for an app, game, or just for fun. So this looks like a tool for editing it, and it runs on Mac and Windows, I think.
And so just a reminder for everyone that MML is it's a different name for essentially the syntax of the play command. So it's you want to create data for the play commands, and it's just a way to help you do some composing there. Then I've got some tools that will help you take that kind of data and prepare data to play on the Game Master cartridge. And there's other tools that'll let you target other hardware or even other synthesizer software or whatever. Anyway, the point being is it's a tool to help you compose music to then use in your applications or your games. Check it out. You might find something that works.
Yeah, and it's very point and click friendly. If you're, you basically have drop downs, like you can select whether you want a square wave or a sawtooth, and you can just type in the octave and decay values, volume, and it will spit out what you would use in a play command.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what could be easier than that? Yeah, check it out. That's cool. Okay, and we have yet another one from Mr. Jim Gary. Coloric.
Neat looking game.
Yeah, this one, you've got a bunch of different colored squares, and it looks like when you click on them, it turns the other. I'm trying to think of the game that this reminds me of, like Othello or something, maybe. But where it flips the colors on the board. Oh, interesting game. It's very colorful. Looks like another fun game for the MC10.
Adding value to your MC10 for another year.
So thanks for another great one, Jim.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
If running is your passion, you're always looking to improve your performance. Design a training program to bring you to your top speed with RunCalc. RunCalc is written by Bill Brown, a running coach and marathon runner. It features easy-to-use data entry menus. Turn any TRS-80 color computer with 16K Extended Basic into your personal running coach. RunCalc can help you evaluate your training quality, generate split times, set meaningful goal times and distances for interval training, calculate calorie usage for given runs, compare performances, and much more. RunCalc is just $12.95 on cassette. RunCalc, another fine product from Home Run Software, Dale, Indiana.
All right. Well, let's move on. A little piece of sad news or less than happy news or whatever. Let's see. We got a note from Jim Brain talking about the Glenside Club officers. Says that we greatly appreciate Terry. Is it Steggy? Is that correct? Or is it Steege? I'm never quite sure. I think it's Steggy. Terry Steggy's willingness to help with the business activities of the Glenside Color Computer Club. Is thus with regret we accept Terry's resignation for health reasons. As per the GCC bylaws, the board of directors met and have appointed John Mark Mobley to fill the open position for the remainder of the 2020 to 2021 term. Mr. Mobley has graciously accepted the appointment with sincere appreciation of the board. Yada, yada, yada. So Terry's had some personal issues and needs to step down from being vice president of the Glenside Club, and the club board of directors have asked John Mark Mobley to fill in. So thank you, Terry, for the time and work you put into this. I'm sorry that you've got some other stuff going on. Hopefully, we certainly wish you well.
Yes.
And hope that you recover nicely and quickly. John Mark, you've picked your own poison and hope that it doesn't drag you down. John Mark, I'm sure, knew what he was getting into. And I hope he does well.
Before. Yeah.
Moving on. So we've got 3 links from Mr. Nick Morentis. He's got his game in development that he's been talking about for a while, the 0 Hour. So he's got chapters 5, 6, and 7 talking about that. Let's see. So chapter 5 is titled Title and Top 10 Pages. I guess he's describes his title page and how he's implemented some of that. And goes on and describes the game controls. The chapter 6, Elevators, Fire, and Compiled Sprites. So he talks some about his other aspects of his games, how he's implementing the sprites, and he talks some about using compiled sprites as a technique to kind of like the video technique we're talking about with the Apple II video player, where compiled sprites replace some graphics movement with the code that does the painting rather than just giving you the data and maybe have your program paint with just the data. It's a way to speed up games. So definitely worth reading and understanding. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, do so. Be worth your time. Let's see. And he goes on chapter 7, says player movements, and he talks about how he's using the joystick. Let's see. He's got a video preview there. It's a little hard to show you that over the audio podcast, but anyway,
definitely check out the video.
Yeah. If you're interested in what Nick is up to, then check out his videos. It's his 0 Hour game development blog.
Yeah, I like the gear animation in the background for the gameplay.
Yeah, it looks
nicely done.
Looks nice.
Looks pretty cool. Yep. Let's see. Next link comes from Todd Elze, ELLZE. LZ, I think it's probably close enough. Let's see. Todd says, wants to dig in a little more on Tandy Radio Shack's archive of their employee newsletter, The Intercom. Check it out here at the University of North Texas Digital Portal. So he's got a link there, and they've got the collection of The Intercom, I assume digitized. If you want to learn a little bit what it was like to work at the Radio Shack back in the day, or Tandy, whatever, the opportunity to get a peek behind the scenes and check out some of those old employee newsletters.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of cool. It's not for everyone's entertainment, but it's something to do. Probably pretty fun. Let's see. Moving on. So something to do and probably pretty fun. We've got a link from Richard Kelly. He, pops up every once in a while. We're releasing some software stuff, and so he's got a disk image from Brickout from T&D Software. It's called Brickout. He says it's not what you think, except it sort of is. So Brickout's a recreation of the Microvision game, Blockbuster. Microvision was one of, or possibly the first portable gaming console. Anyway, from judging from the name, I assume that you're going to be familiar with the gameplay. I'm sure it's a paddle a ball against the wall to knock out bricks kind of game. But can we ever have enough of those? I'm not sure we can.
Oh no, definitely not.
A lot of possible variations. Actually, a surprisingly large number of variations. But so check it out. Definitely, Richard. Thanks for making it available for us, and good to have your contribution. All right. And so here's one, again, if you're an old school gamer, you might get excited about this.
Oh, yes.
Roberta and Ken Williams announced their first game in over 20 years. Of course, if those names sound familiar to you, they were the owners and creators of Sierra Entertainment, which was originally known as Online Systems, and somewhere in the middle was Sierra Online. They certainly made a number of influential adventure games, especially graphical adventures. Probably best known will be King's Quest or possibly Space Quest, or a number of Quest-style games.
Yeah.
So if they're back together making games, especially if you like that style of game, that's probably some good news for you.
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah.
When you see a title like that, it tells you that retro is hot right now. I mean, that's cool.
Yep. So very good, something forward to. Hope that pans out.
If you use your color computer for spreadsheets, accounting, and other numeric-intensive applications, then you need the Numberjack from HJL Products. The Numberjack is a numeric keypad that connects to your color computer in just 5 minutes. No soldering, no drilling, and no special tools required. In addition to the 10 number keys, the Numberjack features 4 cursor keys, clear, decimal point, and 4 standard math keys. The Numberjack has a low-profile ABS enclosure with the same full travel key switches used in the HJL 57 keyboard. The Numberjack is built so well it carries a full 1-year warranty. Cut the tedium out of numeric data work with the Numberjack from HJL Products, a division of Touchstone Technologies.
All right. My next news article is from Guillaume Major, and he has just added the Play Now feature to games and educational software in the cassette section. And that's, of course, on the Color Computer Archives website that he runs and maintains. That is a really neat feature.
It is. It's cool. Especially for cassette stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
You just want to try something real quick or see what it's all about, it's right there for you.
It's amazing to think, in some ways it doesn't seem like that long ago when it was just amazing and cool to find an old image of some software that you could then make a disc or a cassette out of.
Yeah.
Just to find it at all, And now not only can you find it, you can click on a link and it'll play the emulator in the browser, and it'll run faster than the original hardware did. So,
yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, it's great work. Yeah, check it out. All right, next, moving on here, the next article is from the 8-Bit Guy. It's a YouTube video. I'm sure you've heard of the 8-Bit Guy. And this was a neat video. It's a Apple monitor found in a landfill, and it's a 2-parter, and it shows a full restoration project that he's done on this old Apple CRT.
Yeah, I'll say he's lucky he didn't kill himself poking around inside that old CRT.
Yeah,
especially because it didn't exactly look too good. I'm surprised the snake didn't crawl out of it.
Oh yeah, it looked bad.
Yeah, pretty rough.
Yeah.
But, it goes to show you what some determination and perseverance can bring you sometimes. So don't give up on that old stuff this has been sitting in the back of the closet. I mean, you hear that all the time. Well, we found this in the back of the closet in an air-conditioned room where it's been for 20 years. I was shocked that it still worked. Well, it was not actually treated all that badly, right?
Right.
Stuff like this can still work. And it's been rained on and mud and God knows what's crawled all over it. And so there's still hope.
That's a good point, yeah. All right, moving on here. Next article, actually, speaking of MIDI, earlier in the show. This is from Dan, is it Koff? I don't know if you
think so.
Yeah, at Quartz. And this is a neat article. It's an update to a 37-year-old digital protocol. It would profoundly change the way music sounds. So MIDI is changing to MIDI, from MIDI 1.0 to MIDI 2.0.
That's a long time for a protocol to be stagnant like that. It's held up for a long time, but yeah, computer power is leapt in 37 years, so we're getting a little more detail and option for the MIDI protocol.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing. It's been sufficient for that length of time
That's what I was thinking.
At least for a lot of people. So.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably hype a little bit to say it's going to profoundly change the way the music sounds, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, all right. Nick Brzovac has got a new game controller, and this is kind of cool. I've never seen this style before. Not sure how you'd actually describe it. Got 6 buttons on it. Looks like 6 keys and potentiometer.
Yeah.
And a cool gray case.
It's pretty minimalistic, right?
Yep.
But he's got some buttons on there. He's got a pot, 1 axis, and I assume the 4 buttons on the right are working basically the way our joystick adapters would work for the Atari joysticks, and then those 2 buttons on the left are probably the fire buttons. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, if that covers your games that you want to play, then it's good enough.
So would the potentiometer cover the analog style games?
Yeah, well, it's for like Pong or something.
Right. Well, that's cool. So it's like an all-in-one solution, sort of.
Yeah, kind of.
On what you're playing.
You can also see his keyboard case is kind of a throwback there, customized too for the actual CoCo keyboard. So
it's matching
for it. Matches. So yeah, it's got a cool homebrew look to it.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Yeah, it takes you back when you see something like this, because you used to see these kind of homebrews back, back when the CoCo was in. Yeah, very cool.
All right.
All right, my last news article here is from Darren Atkinson, and this is really cool. This is actually brand new, hot off the press. He has converted, so you can play Zork and more on the MC10, of course, with the MCX32 SD that he's also released. So what he's done is he's adapted the source code for Infocon Z Machine to run on MC10 equipped computers, but it has to be equipped with the MCX32 SD to run. So
sure,
that's
it should
amazing.
be cool to be able to play some stuff. It's and cool. I assume he implemented that stuff. There's always a wealth of opportunity for some Z Machine related projects.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he writes in here it should play most of the available version 3 story files, so the .z3, including Zork Trilogy. Definitely check that out. Got a lot of MC10 goodness this month.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, why don't we close the news section with that, and we'll take another little break, and we'll be back with some feedback.
Your Tandy color computer is powerful, but it's plagued with one problem: clunky expansion. Bowtech Instruments has the solution: quality hardwood cabinets for your color computer. Eliminate that mess on your desk by transferring your computer components into a single elegant case. Our beautiful wood cases have room for your color computer motherboard, disk controller, 2 half-height floppy disk drives, and an additional 5x7 board, such as an 80-column card. Each case is precision milled in our factory and includes a high-quality switching power supply for all of your color computer components. Each case includes a matching hardwood keyboard enclosure for your color computer keyboard. Stop fighting the mess of cables and adapters that take up all of your desk space. Make your system shine with a new hardwood case from Bowtech Instruments. Cases are available in your choice of hardwoods: oak, maple, cherry, walnut, and teak. Another quality computer product from Bowtech Instruments, Utica, Michigan, USA.
All right, now it's time for some feedback. Don't have a ton of feedback this month, but, we thought we'd serve some good vibes. So, the first feedback item we got comes from Ron Delvaux, and he says, thanks for covering my video on CoCoMax. So I guess we had, was it last month or the month before?
I think it was last month. Yeah.
Yeah. We had, Ron had posted a video, and we included it in the news section. Happy to do so, of course, and we like to cover good content, and then content that we feel is interesting to our listeners. Thanks for contributing that, Ron, and certainly glad to have played that for you. Very good, thank you. And then the second one comes from Jim Gary, and of course Jim says, woohoo, amen, which he was doing in response to a post I said, I count 107 days until Tandy Assembly. Can I get a woohoo or maybe an amen? So he gave us both, woohoo and amen. And now I think we're down below 100 days now. So not too long. Tandy Assembly is coming along soon, so get
before we know it.
Yeah, it's going
get
fast.
your presentations ready and get your game face on. It'll be good. It'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, well, that's I think that's all the feedback we're going to cover this month. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with the rest of the show.
Are you only using one side of your disk drives? Well, partner, it's time for you to reach for your 6 drive. 6 drive is a machine language routine that modifies disk extended color basic to allow you to treat each side of your disk drives as independent disks. 6 drive supports up to 3 double-sided disk drives, turning them into 6 independent disk drives. Best of all, 6 drive doesn't require any modifications to your color computer or your disk drives. So what are you waiting for? Holster you a copy of 6 drive today. 6 drive from GimmeSoft.
All right, CoCoManiacs, it's their time to shine. We are back. We're going to have a little host discussion, a host promotion, some fun activity, discussion. I don't know exactly what, but we're going to talk a little bit about what we'd like to see happen at Tandy Assembly, CoCo participation. CoCo, we're calling it CoCoMANIA. We want it to be a big CoCo event. We've had some good participation in the past, but we'd like to see even more CoCo participation. If you're anywhere near the Ohio area, supposed to be something resembling the center of the country, we want to draw you in. Come to Springfield, Ohio. Be part of the CoCo festivities. We want to be happy, fun CoCo event for everyone. So, Tandy Assembly is coming. What do you think? What do you think, Mike? You got any input there?
Oh, definitely. We want to make, we're calling it CoCoMANIA at Tandy Assembly. And of course, Tandy Assembly is for all Tandy computers, and we want everybody to come. But, of course, our audience here at this podcast are CoCo users. So if you've got a CoCo or a Dragon or an Atlas or an MC10, we'd love to see you there. If you don't want to get a table or present anything, you can certainly, come and join the festivities and meet other CoCoers and have a good time. Get away from your normal life for a few days, especially this year coming out of COVID-19. We can use all the support we can get, and it's great. Get all that pent up energy and bring it to Tandy Assembly.
Definitely. What do you think, Neil? Are you going to be able to make it across to join us for Tandy Assembly?
I'm optimistic. I think by October I should be able to. I think it'll be restrictions will be lifted by then, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And of course, CoCoMANIA. That is going to be the CoCo section representing CoCo at Tandy Assembly.
Yeah, I think we do have some speakers on the tech track. They're going to address the color computer topics as well, don't we? I think we've got that slated.
Well, we definitely have some commitment from Boise to come and talk at CoCo. We have a couple of cards up our sleeves. I'm not sure we're ready to play them yet, but nothing else. I'll be there. I'm sure I could manage to talk some CoCo. We'll see what else happens and who else shows up, but definitely want some CoCo content. Should be a good thing. We need to show those Z80 Tandy folk who are boss, right? What the 6809 is all about, world domination.
That's right. That's right. And if you are also interested in your input, if you've got ideas for what you'd like to see at Tandy Assembly for CoCoMANIA, if you've got some ideas, send them to feedback at CoCoCrew.org. Be glad to hear what you're thinking about.
Yeah, if you want to paint a banner or hang a sign, or
yeah, that's right.
That'd be cool. Or if you want to be in charge of the sing along, I don't know if we can handle that, but we could probably accommodate that if you want to sing. James Jones listens sometimes; he may want to be part of the sing along. Yeah, no, we really want this to be a big CoCo event, just in general, especially after missing the last year due to COVID, and just really want to get a little wound up and have some real fun in a wholesome and family-friendly sort of way, of course. But definitely in a very retro and nerdy, geeky sort of way, too. So if you want to come and, expose your stripped-down binaries, then we'd love to check them out for you. Do hacking and, gameplay and... of course, we just need people to do trivia and stuff like that too. I think we could definitely have some trivia. That'd be good.
Yeah, definitely. It's a nice venue. It's in the hotel. There's a nice bar restaurant area there, so you can get some food or some adult beverages or soft drinks, all under one roof. So it's definitely a good time to get away.
Yeah, definitely a nice venue and a nice little town, and not too far away from some decent tourist draws. If you're afraid you're not going to have enough to do in Springfield, it's not too far from the Air Force Museum, which is definitely a cool place to visit.
Absolutely.
And but the main thing is bring your CoCo and show us what you can do with it or what you have done with it. Start working on your Infocom games for
get your
see if we can get them loaded up on our MC10.
Yeah. And don't forget our auction. There's traditionally been a lot of CoCo stuff in our auctions, so it's a good place to pick up some unusual items or pick up another CoCo. Likewise, if you've got something to donate to the auction, bring that along, whether it's CoCo related or not. But that is also a fun time to see all the different items coming through the auction, and you can pick up some real bargains and get some unusual items there.
Yeah, there's been some interesting stuff.
We got part of my storage room stuffed with some some items that need to go to the auction. That should be fun. Well, so everyone come to Tandy Assembly, especially with your CoCo mindset. It's okay if you like the Z80s too, but show your CoCo pride, fly your rainbow flag, and something like that.
Rainbow magazines.
Come and be with us at Tandy Assembly. The CoCoMANIA will be full and in the air. It'll be a good time. We'll be had by all.
Yep,
definitely
be a blast.
Woohoo! All right. Well, does that kill it for us? Is that all we got to say?
Yep.
I think that's a wrap.
All right. All right. Well, that's a wrap.
CoCoMANIA presents an evening of operetta.
For all your word processing needs is Telewriter 64. Formatting text becomes a breeze with Telewriter 64. 51 by 24 display. It runs in as little as 16K. Available on disc or tape. It's Telewriter 64.
Telewriter 64, the color computer word processor, available only from Cognitech, Del Mar, California.
All right. CoCo Cruisers, are you ready? CoCo Maniacs, I hope you're getting ready. October will be here before you know it. That'll be time for Tandy Assembly. Woo-hoo! Really looking forward to seeing some of you fellas again. Even, non-fellas, if you're into the show and want to be part of it, certainly welcome. Anyway, before I get off into a Tandy Assembly ad, this is John Linville. Welcome you back to the technical segment for this month's episode of the CoCo Crew Podcast. So, what is the topic today? Well, someone was asking a little bit about how one detects the difference between a CoCo 1 and a CoCo 2 in software. And it's an interesting question. Of course, the CoCo 1 and the CoCo 2 are pretty much the same from a software perspective. So, they have some cosmetic changes between them. The cartridge port is missing the 12-volt sources on the CoCo 2. So there's a few cartridges that you can't use on the CoCo 2. You can't use them on the CoCo 2 without plugging them into an MPI that then provides the other power supply rails. But that's not really a programming thing, other than the fact that obviously it can't run programs that require that hardware. But if you do manage to use a multi-pack, then the programs that run on the CoCo 1 will run on the CoCo 2. So, again, there's not really that much difference. Now, the CoCo 2 implementation is part of the reason why it's able to be cheaper, is because it relies on the use of a couple of custom chips. One known as the SALT, or, serial and level translator? No, supply and level translator. And the other one is known as the DAC, for digital to audio or digital to analog converter. Anyway, so there's these two custom chips that were able to reduce the amount of components on the CoCo 2 and cheapen it up a little bit. So, and there's a little bit of a hint there. The SALT chip, the implementation of the RS-232 transmit line there, the amplifier has a higher slew rate. It can change between its high and low values more quickly than the op amp that is used on the stock CoCo 1s. And it turns out you can swap out the op amps, so you can actually make the CoCo 1s just as fast, at least. I don't know, maybe faster. But anyway, there's a hint that you can detect a difference there. You'd probably have to use like some sort of wrap plug or something. But theoretically that could be detected in hardware or in software. But kind of brings up the question, why? Why do you need to detect the difference? So, I mean, maybe you're writing some sort of comprehensive diagnostic software. Once you want to be able to tell the user whether they're on a CoCo 1 or 2. I don't know, maybe there's somebody who was taking motherboards out of cases and or something, or whatever, and you want to know if you had a CoCo 1 motherboard or CoCo 2. I don't know, it's fictional. I don't think that's ever been an issue, but, who knows. Along those same lines, you may somehow want to have an all-knowing aspect to your computer, so it knows it's on a CoCo 1 versus CoCo 2. That's pretty much the same as the diagnostics, but, maybe there's some reason for it to know. And of course, you may want to have your software checked to be sure that it can, or to be reasonably sure that it can use the faster speeds out of the bitbanger port. So, the CoCo serial port, the RS-232 port, it actually has to be run in software. So you need the software to know, how fast to switch the lines or whatnot. And so it's worth knowing whether or not you're going to be able to do the switching. And that may be because you want to use drive wire, or it may even be because you want to do a version of a MIDI port, or not really a MIDI port, but a MIDI cable plugged into your bitbanger board. So anyway, well, that's why. Maybe those are good reasons, maybe they're not, who knows. It's a hobby after all. So how do you detect the difference if you think you need to know, right? So number one, well, you can ask the user. It may work pretty well, actually. Most people know the difference between the CoCo 1 and the CoCo 2. Doesn't take a lot to figure it out just by looking at them in general. But maybe that's not good enough for you for some reason. If you're okay with having a little add-on hardware, then you could maybe plug in a cartridge that detects the plus or minus 12 volt supplies on the cartridge port. Or, like I say, you may have it'll be probably a little smaller. You could have a wrap plug for the RS-232 line, and you could just try the different speeds and see what works. Maybe that's realistic, maybe it's not. So, as we kind of indicated before, you might try to detect the custom chips on the CoCo 2. Now, the the SALT chip. Again, this is supply and level translator, which is not too far from just being a voltage regulator in some ways, or a voltage regulator in a couple of other power supply style circuits. But it's going to be kind of hard to outside of maybe these detecting the speed of the serial port, it'll be a little hard to figure out the behavior of SALT and how it's different from it's a CoCo 1 implementation. And it may be difficult to figure that out through the DAC chip as well, but there are a few more, shall we say, moving parts, not really moving parts, but interesting parts, including the implementation of the analog switch. And so, if you recall, the four-way switch, this is a key part of the CoCo architecture, and if you need a refresher on that, I would refer you back to some of the technical segments in the first year of the CoCo Crew. You did listen to all the episodes from the first year, right? No, clearly you did, or somebody did, because the numbers keep going up every year on the statistics for those older episodes. But anyway, if you haven't already, maybe you should go review some of them. There's some good information there about the different chips in the CoCo and some of the different aspects, including the four-way switch. I'm pretty sure it's covered reasonably well. If you recall, there's the 1-bit ports on the PIAs. There's 2 of these ports and 2 PIAs, so you get there's 4 available, but they do different things. Anyway, you use 2 of them to put them together. You can control the essentially it's like a MUX to multiplex the connections through the 4-way switch. And this is how you implement some of the so many peripherals you're giving that you only have 2 PIA chips, but it's key to the joysticks. It's key to in playing music. It's key to using the CoCo. So the DAC chip, because all these the audio and the cassette related input and output and whatever, it all kind of relates back into the DAC. Was integrated into this DAC chip, along with the DAC's implementation of the analog switch, which is not quite as full-fledged or whatever. So the CoCo 1 used a chip called it's from Motorola, so it's called the MC14529B. I'm not sure why it was the B, but that's what it was. And it's MC14529B. Analog data selector is a dual 4-channel or single 8-channel device, depending on the input coding. So blah blah blah. So basically, you can have ways to select between 4 configurations, and so on the joysticks is used to pick between the two axes on 2 joysticks to feed into the successive approximation ADC for determining where the joysticks are pointing. And then on the other side of the house there, it's used for selecting between the different audio sources, which can be the cassette port or the DAC, or it can take in audio from the cartridge port. And then I think 1 is just nothing. But anyway, so on this chip, you have stuff implemented using transmission gates, which basically makes the connections essentially like moving wires. And so when you have a transmission gate between 2 nodes, the voltages will migrate across them without regard to which direction are you trying to push whatever. There's no directionality in the nodes. Whereas in a true MUX, you can have an input and you have an output. The output is derived from the input and recreated digitally, but it's not as if it's not the same as having the 2 nodes connected. it's a little weird or whatever. I'm sure I'm shorting the explanation a little bit, but it might take you a year or two of electronics class to convince yourself that it's true, or you could just believe me. And so why I bring that up is because it seems as if that the DAC chip implementation of the analog switch isn't based around transmission gates. It seems like it's based at least somewhat around more traditional digital logic. But there also is a motherboard schematic issue involved here. But let me see, what did I miss? So it turns out that there's a pathway on the CoCo 1 that allows for you to establish an electrical connection between the cassette in, which is used to detect the cassette input, obviously, and the 1-bit sound output, which is, the buzzer or beeper sound output. And so, theoretically, at least on the CoCo 1, you could use that configuration and sort of drive your own input. And if you can do that, you can't do that on the CoCo 2. At least that seems apparent from the schematics. I'll look kind of hard at. And judging by a CoCo mailing list message, which was sent back in December of 2013 from the esteemed Mr. Darren Atkinson, you can use this as a basis to detect a CoCo 1 versus a CoCo 2, meaning if you can drive your cassette input with your single-bit sound output, you're a CoCo 1, and if you can't, you're a CoCo 2. So, it makes sense to me. So, let's take a look at the program. There'll be a link in the show notes if you want to take a look at the program. It's in BASIC. It's not speed-sensitive. So you can take a look, figure out a little more about how this MUX selection or analog switch selection is done. It starts out with some pokes to the configuration of the PIAs, and which is setting up the bits on the FF20 PIA. So the high port, actually FF22, FF23. Anyway, set them up to establish the connection to the cassette input line. And he does audio on, which will enable the sound output. The single bit won't enable sound at all. It probably is. Also, as part of the earlier stuff, he'd set up the data direction register, so that you could output to the appropriate bits on FF22. So then goes on and he pokes all zeros to it, and he reads back from the FF20 port and looks for the cassette input value with an AND 1 there. And then he pokes a 2 to FF22, which sets the 1 bit for the sound output. And then he peeks back on the cassette input line, and then he basically compares them to figure out whether or not, as if you saw a change, then you had a CoCo 1. It's pretty ingenious, really, and it's a neat little hack, and it explores or exploits a little feature of a piece of hardware that you certainly could easily overlook, and it was kind of hard to verify it in the schematics, but it looks right to me, and it seems to be working. As far as I know, this is the basis of anything that's doing the detection of CoCo 1 versus a CoCo 2 versus whatever CoCo 1 versus CoCo 2 detection, which is done I think in STC DOS. I believe it's on HTB DOS. Wherever it might be getting done, it's probably based on this, unless it somehow predates 2013. I remember when this email came out, and it was kind of a neat concept, and so it must have been cool enough that I saved it. So anyway, another technical wonder on the CoCo brought to you by Darren Atkinson. the unsung hero of the CoCo world. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for now. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. It'll be at feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org, CoCoCrew.org. All right, well, thanks, and CoCo forever.
This week, the CoCo Crew Podcast is brought to you by Gimme Crisp Cereal. Most any cereal is fine with me, as long as you spell it G-I-M-E. Magenta, red, buff, yellow, and green. Keeps your mind sharp and your body lean.
Start your day right with a delicious bowl of Gimme Crisp cereal. Crispy oat O's with colors of the Tandy color computer. Served with milk and juice, it's part of a complete breakfast, and moms love its 3 vitamins and herbs. And for a limited time, you can get 1 of 5 color computer program packs free. Just send $3 handling and 5 box tops from specially marked boxes of Gimme Crisp. Choose from Clowns and Balloons, Atom, Bingo Math, Color Backgammon, and Dino Wars.
Magenta, red, buff, yellow, and green. Keeps your mind sharp and your body lean. Gimme Crisp.
This month in CoCo history.
Welcome to This Month in CoCo History, where we explore events in the life of our favorite home computer. I'm John Linville, and this month we reach back 32 years to the June 1989 issue of Mug Notes, the official newsletter of the Motorola Users Group of London. Within Volume 1, Issue 4 of that periodical, we find the usual bits one expects to find in a club newsletter. Names and addresses of the club's officers, a list of club special interest groups and their meeting places and times, and minutes from then recent general and executive meetings of the club. These are followed by a collection of short technical articles, many with a focus on telecommunications or BBSing. This, of course, was a popular activity at that time for home computer users on both sides of the Atlantic. Tucked in with the technical articles is a short interview of Rick Adams, author of the terminal packages RickyTerm and DelphiTerm. The interview is presented by a chap named Jerry Thomas, who is identified earlier in the document as the public relations officer of the club. Mr. Thomas describes a community breakfast at Rainbow Fest 89, during which he learned of a text string in a bit of Rick's code from RickyTerm, which reads as follows. The CIA terrorist NCA uses encrypted Iranian drugs as ammunition for its crack AK-47 SAM MiG encoded NRO DES Russian Socialist Propaganda Tempest missile cocaine assassination conspiracies. Rick explains to Mr. Thomas that the oddly worded string above is what he calls NSA food. It is intended to distract government agents that might be poking their noses where they don't belong. Rick goes on to assert that there are various troublemaking, weird or strange people who like to keep them happy by inserting a lot of interesting things in online communications. Having met Rick and talked to him as part of the CoCo Crew podcast, it is oddly comforting to know that such quirkiness is not at all new either to him or to the community at large. Yet, one has to wonder whether or not the London Motorola user Jerry Thomas was fully in on the joke 32 years ago in June of 1989.
And that's this month in CoCo history.
Delphi is the world's premier online information service. Download files, chat with friends, send electronic mail, play multi-user games, and even make travel reservations. And with Delphi's new 2020 Advantage plan, you get 20 hours of connect time each month for just $20. And any additional time is only 2 cents per minute. No other full-featured online service comes close. Join Delphi now for just $39.95, and your first 20 hours are free. To sign up, simply use your CoCo and modem to connect to Delphi. Use the username JoinDelphi and the password CoCo20. If you're already a Delphi member, simply type Go Using Advantage. Get 20 hours of real online fun and productivity with the Delphi 2020 Advantage Plan. Delphi, the world's premier online information service.
Okay, welcome, CoCo Cruisers. We've got a treat today. We have an interview with someone who's a listener and a member of the CoCo community at large for quite some time, and he's as old as I am, so he's been around and done some cool stuff. So we're talking to Mr. Torsten Dittel, coming to us from Germany. Close enough. Anyway, Torsten, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Torsten here, and I'm very happy to join.
Very good.
And,
very good.
Yeah, I apologize for my poor English. So,
well, I'm sure it's
but I think
more than serviceable. Certainly better than my German.
Yeah.
Also joining us, of course, we have Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello.
And, of course, Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, everyone.
So they'll, of course, be joining us in the discussion. So, Torsten, let's see. You've been around a while. Send us a little bit of biological or bibliographical whatever information about yourself. Let's see. Just talk about a little bit about one of your more interesting projects that I find you. At some point in the past, you discovered a CoCo program called Dragonfire, which, of course, is interesting in the way it programs the VDG and does some trickery that one wouldn't necessarily think would be possible just from reading the data sheet. But interesting as that is, I assume that the version that was written or published in the U.S. it uses timings for the NTSC television and so probably doesn't display correctly on PAL televisions. And so you took that as a challenge sometime in the past, so in the mid-'80s, and you made it work with PAL.
Yeah, indeed. The Dragonfire cartridge was one of those not being sold by Tandy Germany or Tandy Europe, I guess, because it does some heavy switching of the PMO 3 palettes. I'm not sure if it got it like with the two color sets of PMO 3, and it does it in the raster scan line. That doesn't leave much CPU instructions for the game itself. So the Dragonfire game is not very exciting. It's just simple jumping and ducking, running.
Right.
But because the CPU is basically only working on the screen, but I found it quite interesting that it was showing the 8 colors at once, the 8 PMO 3 colors at once, and even was switching the color and within the line, and then that all was a stable picture. But as you mentioned, it didn't work on PAL TV. It was all like shifted and distorted, and that's when I wanted to understand how they did it and if there was something which could be done about it. And indeed, by slightly changing the timing, doing things like changing some no operation instructions, which are 2 cycles as far as I remember. This is all there a long time ago. By some branch never instructions, which had 3 cycles and things like that. So I slightly modified the timing. And I made the picture synchronize well to the PAL 50 hertz and the different number of scan lines and all this kind of stuff, which had to be done to make it show same like on the NTSC television. The funny thing about that is when I learned how that was done, and since it was a ROM pack, it was loaded into the lower 32K of RAM, then had to be then had to be executed there. The CoCo had to be switched to all RAM mode, and it had to be copied by a little routine to the upper 32K. So that's how everybody knows how that has to be done with the ROM packs. And when I did it, I wanted to start it at an even address and a certain easy to remember address. And then I had a few bytes left between that copy routine and the actual ROM code, binary code for the upper 32K. And then I started to program an introduction. We had a huge Commodore 64 scene in Germany in that time, and I was a little bit jealous that they had all those demo programmers which did all these correct by and greetings and anti-greetings stuff. And then I tried a little bit to play around with that thing, and I mixed it up a little even more. So I combined semigraphic 24 text, semigraphic 24 mode with P mode 4. I even noticed that you could switch color sets on the border, and then like it was like plotting horizontal lines on the border, and then I was animating horizontal scrolling, vertical scrolling. I did everything which came to my mind, and which I even had to compress the graphics to make it fit into that a few bytes I had for that stuff. And actually, I did it for myself. I don't even remember how this made it into the wild, but it turns out that finally that PAL Dragonfire version was used by the well-known Iran or Sixi, the author of the X-Raw emulator, and he was using this demo with the VDG tricks to make sure his emulator timing, especially in the PAL version, is right. So that's how that's what I noticed. So it's kind of an emulator benchmark. So that's a little trace I left, and I think that was written in 1986.
It's a shame you didn't have contact with Simon Jonassen back then, huh?
Yeah, I had in very early times I had contact with Simon. I mean, he's in Europe, so we are very few CoCo users in Europe. We have always been very few, and but those who have been, some of them still are very in love with their CoCos still after all the time. And then we are in contact, and I discussed with Simon about such tricks, and I dared to claim that I kind of inspired him as well for many of the interesting stuff he's doing, because he had seen this demo, and we were discussing how it was done. And so I know him since quite some time, maybe even before he became kind of famous in the CoCo community, because he's doing really crazy stuff.
Sure.
And I'm very surprised that people are still figuring out things. Because so what I did is plain VDG torture. Yeah, so it was really nothing tricky, but I was seeking for other stuff. For example, so I wanted to understand if one could do something like hardware scrolling. And as you know, when you define the start address of the P mode 4 graphics screen, it's jumping in quite big steps. I don't remember the details, but I think it's like 512 bytes or something. I don't know. Not sure. So there's quite a few lines. So it's I always thought, what if I could make it start with scroll by just a line and not a few lines, or what if I could make the character generator read synchronize for the SemiGraphics 24. And actually this is possible, and people figured it out recently. So there's a demo in the XRAW emulator now. When you start the XRAW Online emulator, then there is a demo which is some weird VDG SEM interaction, and it allows to hardware scroll in the text mode, line by line. And so that means that even now in these days, people are figuring out things which no one ever figured out. And I didn't figure them out. And was seeking for it. And Simon did find some other stuff. So he was figuring out that you could have more bytes per line than the 32 bytes in the video display generator. And he was even opening the right border. And Kieran figured out that you could do smooth hardware scrolling. Vertical. So I'm very impressed that people are still finding things. Secrets of the CoCo, and everybody thought that it's well documented and explored. And I was in my use, I was always interested in things like people saying, this can't be done on a 0.89 megahertz 8-bit computer. And then it became interesting for me, and I wanted to prove that it could be done. It just depends on how clever you are.
Sure. That's the beginning of a lot of stories, right there.
Yeah, but when you introduced me, thank you for that. You were mentioning that I'm quite some time with the CoCo, so maybe I can quickly wrap up how that all started.
Sure. You end up with the CoCo as opposed to the Commodore.
Because it's a little bit strange that for Germany there were almost no CoCo users in Germany. Might have been some, maybe even more Dragon users, and that was as well a very exotic device from UK. But the background of that is that my father. So I'm an engineer in these days. My father had been an engineer. He was working in a broadcasting company and was leading the technical area where all the audio system for broadcasting was defined and developed. And so I had early contact to anything which you would call a gadget today. And then it was quite obvious that I would be one of the early adopters of home computers as well. I remember that my mom didn't like the idea because I guess she read somewhere that if the computer comes to the home, that this is like the end of the marriage.
In some cases.
So there were rumors between the wives that the computer mustn't be at home. And I remember that when I was like 11, so that was in 89, that my father came home a little bit late and he didn't ring the doorbell, which he usually did. He was opening the door with his keys, which he never did. And that was very suspicious. So everybody, myself, my mom, my sisters, I don't know, but my mom and went to the door and wanted to understand what was going on. And my father came home with a big Radio Shack box with a Technicolor Computer 1. And he was looking like a little kid who was caught doing something he mustn't do. So he felt very guilty. And he explained to my mom that this was a very important toy for myself because it was very important that kids learn this kind of stuff. So I was the excuse that he brought that home. Of course, it was actually meant to be his toy, but I nailed him down on this statement. So it was like kind of blackmailing him. So I know that you brought that home for you, and I know that Mom didn't want that, and so that was my chance to get hands on a computer, and it didn't take much then when I was using it more than himself. But he was very curious, so he was very CoCo enthusiastic, and that was a very early board a CoCo 1 board. It has a very low serial number, like 100 and something. And I still have it, by the way. And he did the 64K upgrades. And he was copying all the Micro AT magazine articles, and so he had a huge database. And interestingly enough, we could buy the Rainbow and Hot CoCo at the local central train station in Cologne, where they had an international press where there were a few foreign magazines sold. And there, I don't know why and who. It was only like 2 or 3 and they were gone. So maybe there were these 2 or 3 CoCo users who bought it. It was Rainbow and Hot CoCo. I think these were the 2 magazines. I'm not sure if we ever had a copy of the Color Computer magazine. I'm not sure of that, but I think maybe he got copies of that somehow. And he had a very good, he was very good connected to the local Tandy store. So there was someone working there as a technician who was actually an electronic music musician. And actually there's even some connection to Dennis Bathory Kish. I figured that out later, that this Tandy technician wasn't even in contact with him because they were working on some electronic music composition stuff. And so that's interesting how everything is connected and how the world is a small village.
Right.
Yeah. And because he had this connection to the Tandy store, he had access to all the technical reference manuals. The CoCo had a great documentation, especially compared to other home computers. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, definitely.
So the getting started books were very, very well written, and they were available in German as well. I didn't even have English in school, and that time I started to learn Latin. But I learned English just because I wanted to read the Rainbow. So I was very quick in learning.
Great reason.
Yeah, and there were these great technical reference manuals. I have all the CoCo stuff boxed. So currently, because of family, there's not much time to play with that. But one day I inventorize it. I will make a big unboxing event and maybe write a blog and post some pictures what I find. So that will be like 20 times Christmas in a row, because I guess I will find a lot of stuff which I never knew that I had it, because like I said, Tandy wasn't very well selling the color computer, and they didn't want to, because they preferred to sell the expensive machines. And the color computer was an unwanted competition. That's what I got. So it was too good compared to the other model 1, 2, 3 computers. They preferred not to. So they sold it like a toy, not like a computer. And my father knew that this was actually a Motorola 6809 reference design. So the color computer is very straightforward, and it was an interesting machine for someone who's interested in how a computer works, and it was perfect to learn how a computer works. You could see the Atari ladder network for the digital analog conversion. So I learned so many things on how computer, and I'm still it's still a benefit for my career that I know all the internals of everything. So I think that was a great chance we had when we were born in these times where everything was new and you had the chance to understand everything. Now people, my son is 5 years old. He's getting a smartphone, and there's no surprise for him. So all this augmented reality is all normal for him, but he doesn't know how that works. But when we got the color computers, we learned how everything works. So that was a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I hardly had any software in Germany. So Tandy had the ROM packs, at least those which were running on PAL systems. And then there was OS 9 available, as far as I remember. But all the third-party software was not available in Germany. Very late, before they closed down in 1980s, or so, 5, I don't remember exactly when they shut down in Europe. They were selling these micro deal tapes from the UK. So that was the time where I first got hands on titles like famous Tomics titles like Buzzard Bait and Time Bandit and The King. So that was very, very exciting for me because I knew these programs from the Rainbow ads. And finally, I had games which were kind of competitive with the games from other computers. Funny enough, and you have to stop me because I could go on like for hours telling such anecdotes. Funny enough, the microdeal tapes had a very sophisticated copy protection. So that worked with overloading the RAM hooks and the reset vectors and creating I/O errors, and then so they did spent a lot of effort. So the programs were auto-started and you could not leave them with reset or something. So that was very well done. But all these games, all the microdeal games, they had a color set selection screen. So you could actually, you were asked if you want to play in black, buff, or green. So that was referring to P Mode 4, which would have been the American version with artifact colors, but we didn't have artifact colors. So it was not, it was just black and white stripes with some shades of lilac and yellow, nothing comparable to artifact colors. But then they offered to switch to the two PMO 3 color sets, green 1.0 and 1.1 in basic. They patched actually the game then. They knew where the color sets were selected, so that was done by patching the game. And this little patch program had to clear the screen, the text screen. And the programmers were obviously too lazy to add that few bytes of code to clear the screen, and they jumped into the CLS routine in basic ROM. And I wondered if they had done so. Then I brought the computer to all RAM mode, and I hijacked the clear screen routine with some code, which was then, like cold starting the computer by software. And that was how I could exit the copy protected programs and then save them to disk. So I could load them from disk. so that's how
clever. Very clever.
Yeah, I don't even remember how I had the idea. It was something like, I wonder if they had been stupid enough to call the basic CLS routine. And strange enough, I still remember all the addresses, so I know that the entry point for CLS is A928. If someone wants to look that up, I still remember that one. So in my brain, it's still like unraveled. You know what I mean. So I have big parts of the basic ROM. I see it disassembled in my. So that's how I grew up, and I had a lot of fun. And first I had to program my own software because there wasn't any of the official Tandy products. Later I knew people who had connections to the United States, and there was a computer club in a Dutch computer club in the Netherlands, and then somehow I pirated stuff, made it across the pond. When I had my CoCo like until 1988, maybe 89. I was using that one for everything. I used TeleWriter to write my TeleWriter 64 to write my text, and but I find then I switched to an Atari ST computer because I was much into music stuff. Sure. I was programming my own MIDI tools for the color computer. Another funny story was that I noticed that there were notes hanging when you used Lyra. You know that program for music program for the color computer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was using the bitbanger port to output MIDI data. First, my father figured out that it didn't work well with the Color Computer 1, but it did with the Color Computer 2. And then he noticed that the op amps in the Color Computer 1 were too slow for the 31.25 kilobaud of MIDI. But there was a pin compatible replacement for that. And it was discrete, and he socketed that and then changed those, and then it was working with the Color Computer as well. But there were still like notes hanging. So MIDI is always about sending note on, note off. And sometimes, obviously, the note off didn't come through. So notes kept hanging on the synthesizer. And I wanted to figure out why that is. And I looked into the assembler code, like always, to understand how they did that. And it turns out that I think the numbers are right, but I might be wrong with biocycle, so don't take it too serious. I think a bit in the MIDI baud rate, that was like 27.5 cococycles.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what Lyra did, it was like outputting 27 cycles when the bit was a 0 and 28 cycles when the bit was a 1, assuming that in average it would be the average of 27.5. But that was not the case for the note off command, because it was like 128 or so. So there were a lot of bits not set, and that then led to some synchronization issues. And I patched the Lyra program to just toggle between 27 and 28 cycles for each bit. So it was just a minor patch to the code, and then Lyra worked fine. So if anybody ever has problems with Lyra,
very cool.
Yeah. So and this it was like this for me. I did a lot of. I played a lot of around with music. So I did music stuff like Simon, again with the Color Computer, with the different sound sources it has, and I played around with sound compression. I played around with digitizing via the zero crossing detector of the tape. I then had a CoCoMax 2, and I even used the CoCoMax 2 cartridge, which is actually an ADC, an 8-bit ADC, or even a few of them. So like 8-channel actually, but they are not all used. But I used this the CoCoMax cartridge to digitize, and I even wrote a scope program. So I had a digital oscilloscope. Bad enough. Most of this stuff, I guess, is so the source. I might rescue it from some old floppy disks. I tried to rescue it a little bit in the 90s, but it didn't work well with the floppy controller on the PC, because it was like blanking out the floppy data after the index hole. So that was typical for PC controllers, and the CoCo had a little bit shortened header because it has a lot of overhead with the small sector size. So it's squeezing many small sectors, and then there is a sync header after the index holes when the track starts. And this is shorter on the Radio Shack format than on a usual MS-DOS disk. Then when you had some NEC, I don't know what floppy controller of these times, then it couldn't synchronize well to the first sector. So there were always read errors with the first sector, and then that's why when I stopped digitizing. But I will buy one of these grease weasels one day and start to digitize my floppies, and maybe I can find some interesting stuff I did when I was young.
Well, that'd be cool. Especially your program sounds really cool. Good use for the Max cartridges. Not that CoCoMax isn't a good use, but so you'd mentioned that you'd been involved with the Color Computer Archive and with their Play Now of functions that they've been adding lately.
Yeah, that's an another interesting project. So from time to time, so maybe just to wrap up, when I was entering the Atari ST and PC world, I still kept my CoCo and I turned it on from time to time. But especially in these times, the internet came up and eBay came up, and I started to buy stuff in other countries. So I bought a lot of stuff on eBay. I even bought a few CoCo 3 in Australia.
Huh.
They were sold for $1. Yeah, so no one wanted to buy these. Only the shipping to Europe was a little bit heavy, so that was like $50, $50 something. So that was a lot for a student. That was a lot for shipping. But I thought it's worth getting them. So I think in the meantime, they are thousands of dollars if I look at the current prices. But that's how I finally got PAL CoCo 3s, despite I never used them a lot, just tried them out. But when I was young, getting a color computer from Australia, which was PAL 50 Hertz, 240 that was just dreaming, because in these times you couldn't import it. It was just too expensive. You had to do all the custom stuff, and so that was impossible. But in the 90s that's when I bought a lot of stuff, and I stored it and boxed it, and
Very cool.
My wife is I guess she loves me a lot and is very patient and lets me store all this stuff. So that's not a regular scenario, I guess. So.
Well, yeah.
Okay, but talking about the color computer archive, actually the idea of having something like a Play Now is not mine. So I have seen that in the Dragon Arch archives.
Oh yeah.
So they had this Play Now function. I thought that would be great to have for the color computer archive as well. And it actually, I'm not sure if you have. I guess you have looked into it. It's like when you click on it, it's like calling actually the Xra online on Kieran's server, on the Xra server. It's like, I forgot what is the name? Like 6809 something org or whatever. Where he stores the Xra stuff. Okay, then I thought, okay, that must be very easy to have that, and I played around with it, and it turned out that it did not work, and I had no idea why. And then it took me quite some time to read what is actually happening if you are hosting a site, and this site then and then that site is running in a user's browser, and then in the browser there is a script running, and it's trying to load some file from another site, which is the color computer archive. Now, first you start the Xra online on another server, and then this tries to load another file from the archive in your browser. This is highly suspicious. And because there are these cross-site scripting attacks where people try to smuggle code into other people's computer, and the browser manufacturers did a lot of things to prevent that from being possible. And you must add some headers to your servers, which like define what other servers are trustworthy, so to say. So that means you have to set up all involved servers have to be set up, and that it's even not the same mechanisms on all browsers, because I think the Chrome and Firefox and Internet Explorer that's called Edge now. I don't know. I think it's even changed the name now. I don't know. So the Microsoft thing, all are doing that in a little bit different way. So I recently, when that was published, I read in Facebook, people with the Safari browser on the Apple couldn't access it. But there it obviously still doesn't work. but it took me quite some time to figure it out. And Guillaume Major from the Color Computer Archive and Kieran from Expo were very patient with me and tried out. And I said, okay, now try this. Please try this. Please try this, because it's a little bit voodoo what you have to do, and then what people are writing in the internet is not very consistent. So I didn't find a very good documentation. So it was a lot of trying around, but finally it worked. Then I started to play all the ROM packs, including color scripted and color file, to figure out what would be the best initial settings for XRAW with respect to keyboard or mouse emulation, because some games are only keyboard, some games are joystick emulation. So whether it's keyboard or mouse, joystick emulation, because some games are joystick games, but you can hardly play them with the mouse. So that's when you better choose a keyboard mouse emulation in XRAW. So I did this for all the ROM packs, and I plan to do that for all the other programs at the archive as well, but I gave up. It was just too much work. So I think the ROM packs are set up fine if Guillaume has copied all the settings to it. But I guess for some of the other, when you have other CAS files, when you use the play now function, you might want to toggle a little bit and enable the right joystick emulation and disable the left one and things like that.
Sure.
But what I just checked, if you so the PAL Dragonfire thing with my intro is on the archive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you click on that, it correctly starts XRAW in a PAL VDG mode. So.
Cool.
So obviously, maybe some of the settings are right of the CAS files as well. But I'm very happy with seeing that, and I'm glad that Guillaume didn't give up when I stopped delivering. I told him, let me just play any game, and I will give you the best settings in XRAW for each of them. But I stopped contributing at that point of time, but he was working hard on that. And now I'm happy to see that, because it's really cool. Just if you say, how was that game? How did it look like? And you can quickly just have a look without setting up any actual hardware. That's good stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Well, it's a nice feature and a nice thing to give to the community to help people, like you say, have quick access if they want a quick look at a game, or maybe they're thinking about buying
that's
something.
what I thought. That's what I thought, and that it was worth the effort. And these are the small things I can contribute. So I cannot contribute in a way like other people contribute, especially the hardware developers. That's incredible what all these Jim Brains and Ed Snyder and all these people doing their hardware. This is really incredible. If you compare that to the things we could do way back, I mean, my father did a lot of hardware because he's a hardware engineer. So he created his own packs, MIDI pack and Beach synthesizer pack and all things like so there were a lot of homebrew hardware at my home. But if you see what they can do, even using this robotic device to populate the PCBs and all this kind of stuff, this is incredible. Or they even reproduce a keyboard and things like that. So
yeah, well, it is a whole different world in terms of capabilities that people can afford to buy the equipment and the stuff to do that sort of thing, or even to contract for manufacturing. Kind of crazy how easy some of that is these days, how available it is. But it's cool that they take advantage of that to help us all in the hobby.
and the what you can do with the programmable chips, all the programmable logic chips and FPGAs and this kind of stuff. I mean, before when you did hardware, it was like a cemetery of TTL chips, and this was getting hot and it was huge. And now you can now people populate their cartridges with these programmable devices and flashable devices with hundreds of legs, and so it's incredible. So I'm really happy seeing people, with so much passion to develop this kind of stuff. Not for getting rich, I guess in most cases it must be, just for the laugh with the CoCo. And one recent news that's interesting as well was there was a new Infocom style game released.
Yeah,
and that was a German guy, and I haven't heard from him, so he wasn't in the CoCo scene. And it turns out that actually he was just trying to add as many systems as possible when he released his interactive fiction game. So this is actually using the plain Infocom interpreter, and I found that very interesting, and then I talked with him, and then I asked him, when I looked at the other platforms, so that it was all in with lowercase letters, and on the CoCo then it was only. And I asked him, did you create a special version for the CoCo with all capital letters? And he said, no, it's the same Z machine file for any platform. So there must be lowercase in. It's just not displayed in that Infocom interpreter, that machine interpreter code. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, but if that is the case, and I had a CoCo 2 with a T1 VDG, which is lowercase capable. I wondered if I could have played Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with lowercase some 35 years ago. I feel, and I think that's how we came in contact, John, because I remember that you were writing in your blog about the revealed source code and how to assemble that. And I said, okay, if we have the source code, I can have a quick look, because I don't have a system set up. I cannot disassemble, and I was just curious if there is some code in the interpreter which is actually changing all the lowercase to capital letters to make it display non-inverted on a regular non-T1 VDG CoCo. And indeed, if I looked in the assembler code, there was even a flag, one of the flag which for lowercase on off, but this part of the codes were commented out. So obviously someone said, okay, it doesn't make sense to to look at the flag, because the CoCo can anyway do only uppercase. But at the same, that's how I found where it was, because there was this lowercase flag mentioned in the commands of the code. And then I found the code which actually is when for any character output on the screen, it asks, is the character the ASCII code of the character, is it above or equal? No, is it lower than 61 hexadecimal? So that means if it's not a lowercase letter, then just leave it alone. But if otherwise you subtract something to make it capital letter. And and that was all. And then I thought, okay, if there was a branch if lower instruction in that code, and I said, okay, you would just need to, you would just change that to a branch always instruction to skip the subtraction, and then you will see the original ASCII character. And I didn't find any occurrence of VDG initialization in the code, and I could easily try it out. I just poked the VDG to lowercase mode and did DOS command. So did the poke F to something and then DOS, and then it turns out that the game was running in lowercase mode, and then I took a hex editor, online hex editor, and took the disk image from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Infocom Adventure, and I seeked for the sequence of this branch if lower instruction, so that was a few bytes. It is only occurring once in the whole binary, and I used the hex editor to change that byte in the disk file to make a branch if lower into a branch always instruction. And I looked up the opcodes online in some 6809 documentation because I was just using the browser for all this. And with that, you can then easily have your Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in lowercase if you have a T1 VDG. And I thought, if I would have known that 35 years ago. Because that's what it was really hard to read uppercase. I mean, well, we were used to uppercase on the CoCo, but if you the Infocom Adventure is like reading a book, and I think it's easier to read if you have the lowercase. After some 35 years, I discovered that I could have had Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with lowercase all the time.
Very cool. Once a hacker, always a hacker, I guess.
I guess. Yeah. And with respect to my current professional work, what I'm actually doing is I'm working on software development processes and tools for embedded system. And one big portion is like seeking for optimization opportunities with respect to resource use, because with an embedded system, you still have resource limits. You still have limited flash memory. You still have limited RAM. You still have limited CPU resources. So you must take care of your CPU load. Knowing what I know from the CoCo is very, very helpful for this kind of stuff.
I'm sure that's true.
So this goes down while the actual programming is done with Simulink model-based function development, and then there are a few steps involved to automatically generate C code from it, and then this is compiled, and you will end up with some assembler code from. But sometimes it's unexpectedly big or slow, and then the question is what can be done to improve that, and that is when you really need to understand what the compiler does and what the CPU does, and how you need to figure out how to change your code and how to change your algorithms to end up with a smaller and faster stuff. This is very interesting, but I think this is something I can do because I did that all the time on the CoCo. Because you always had the question, do I want to be fast or do I want to be small? When you did some coding for an assembler for that machine. So that one developed a lot of capabilities in finding a fast algorithm. Yeah, so it's like when the typical example for someone studying programming stuff would be sorting algorithm. So there are all kinds of algorithms which can be improved a lot to end up with low resource use on the target hardware. So I have the chance to. Yeah, it's like a little bit like still having that hobby at professional work, so that's great.
It's good. And so Dad's investment paid off for you then, huh?
Yeah, actually, yes. So if my mom ever asks,
that's very good. Yeah,
confirm. I think, yeah. No, but I don't ask you to cut it out, but I was a little bit kidding. So it was a little bit like I told you, but it wasn't a big issue in family life at the computer. Okay.
Yep. Well, so Neil or Mike, have you guys got any questions or topics or points you'd like to touch on?
I'm hard pressed at the moment. I've just been enjoying listening.
I hope you enjoyed. So
yeah, it was great stories, definitely.
The problem is that I can share. When I talk with my dad, we're still telling us. Do you remember when we did this? And do you remember? So the CoCo is still a topic. So I think that will never.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and but otherwise I don't have much people. So if I find some new victim, I have a lot of things I can. So, if it's too lengthy, just cut it all out. Don't worry.
Well, it's good that you have that too with your dad. It's a nice bit of a relationship or whatever.
Yeah, and I think this is very typical for if I once did when we still had this listserv. We were using other media to communicate. Today we have Facebook. I don't even have a Facebook account. I sometimes use the account of my wife, and then people are very confused. So the friends of my wife are confused because she's writing strange things about old computers in Facebook and in the community. I heard people saying, "Yeah, that there is that woman from Germany, and she's really she's really a nerd."
Yeah.
and I think I mentioned once that how I cracked that micro deal stuff, and then my wife said, "Hey, people think I'm a cracker." I said, "That's illegal stuff. So don't use my account for that kind of stories." But when we still had the other news group style things and mailing lists, and I did some query on age. I wanted to understand how old people in the CoCo community are, because I had the theory that there is a lot of very old people, which is a dead generation, plus a second generation, which is a son or daughter generation, but mainly sons, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to prove that by doing some statistics, and I collected the age of actually, it wasn't that clear from the data I got, so I couldn't really show it. But I heard a lot of people telling me that they were very young, or they were dead when they came to the CoCo.
Torsten, it's been an excellent chat. It's been some really good stories. I really appreciate you sharing with us. Thank you for joining us. I know
you're welcome.
It's late over there. Too late for you to go out and get some alt beer, I guess.
Yeah. We are still with limited access to beer due to the Corona stuff. So.
I guess that's true.
Now, but I should really take a nap.
I was in Düsseldorf.
You have been in Düsseldorf?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, Simon came down from Denmark to visit me while I was in Düsseldorf. That was cool. I enjoyed being there.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoyed the alt beer for sure.
And that's a little bit off topic, but so I grew up in Cologne, as I have mentioned. Now I'm living in Aachen because I studied at the Aachen University, which is a famous technical university in Germany, and I stayed here, but I'm still working. So I'm working in Cologne. So I'm like, so that's like a 70 kilometers in between Aachen and Cologne.
Mm-hmm.
Cologne is neighbor city to Düsseldorf, and there is like a beer war between these two cities.
Right.
So, like often between neighbors, they're jealous of everything. So one claim our carnival is better than yours and things like that. And the same is true for the beer. So for me, it's quite unusual to drink alt beer. Of course, I do if I'm in Düsseldorf and I have a few colleagues which come from Düsseldorf, and then we go out. And Düsseldorf, of course, we drink alt beer there as well. But if you go to Düsseldorf and ask for a Kölsch beer, which is a Cologne beer, it's called Kölsch, you will be in trouble. And the same the other way around. If you ever come to Cologne and ask for an alt beer, then I guess you will not even get any beer in that pub.
That would be a crime.
But I think it's always some eye blinking, so it's not that serious as it sounds, but it's like a very old fight who has the better beer. And the funny thing is that the way it's brewed is almost the same. The alt beer just has some color, so the dark color that's actually this sugar color. And I don't know, some brown color you create from sugar, and this is used to make it darker. But the way it's brewed, it's the same. So it's almost the same beer. So I never understood the fight. It's a very similar beer, but you must not say that as well.
Well, it's I think it's the same. It's certainly the same here, but over barbecue.
Each city has its special tradition and does it better than the other neighbor city.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, but if you ever come to Germany again or to that region, just let me know. Maybe we can meet and greet.
I should make an arrangement. I should figure out a reason. I've been to Germany 3 times as an adult. Actually, I was born in Kaiserslautern.
You were born in Kaiserslautern?
Yeah, my father was in the U.S. Army.
I guess. There were a lot of U.S. soldiers in that region. Kaiserslautern region is famous, and Gießen and some other cities. So that's not that unusual. Talking about a meeting, I guess you heard that there is some computer museum in the Netherlands.
Oh yes.
Bart van Acker, I think is the name.
Yeah,
Bart.
Something like that.
I have never been there.
Looks nice.
It looks nice. I've seen the videos and the footage of that, and I really would love to go. That's bad enough. It's not that close to my city. So, despite I'm close to the Netherlands, but it's not something I will quickly take a train and go there. But I plan to go there, and I hope that I can meet with Simon and and there is there is the other guy.
It's a name we'd all know too. I can't remember it right now.
In Denmark.
Yeah.
So
we need Bart to sponsor a CoCo Fest Europe, and we could all converge on his museum. That'd be a good party.
Oh, that'd be great.
Maybe need another year or so before all the COVID stuff clears or whatever. But
okay, now the name came Fedor. Have you heard that name? It's Fedor. Fedor. It's another.
Fedor. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Fedor Steeman or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So actually, we are the 3 European CoCo users, and we always wanted to meet one day, and would be a good place in Bart's museum.
That'd be awesome.
Hopefully, it still exists and didn't suffer too much from the Corona time.
Hopefully not. It looks like he's doing well.
It does.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think the retro stuff really became a hype in these days. So many people like the retro stuff. They have the retro pies and like to play the old games and see pixels again. It looks like people are a little bit fed up with that hyper reality, the incredible ray traced movie style games. So people are happy to see blocks and pixels and low resolution and text mode stuff. So it's interesting.
That's how I like it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I really loved doing pixel graphics. And there are very talented people, and Rico is incredibly good in creating stuff in low resolution.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are a lot of 8-bit artists who do pixel work in incredibly good quality. I wish we would have had those creative people in the times back, because sometimes the games were quite good, but the graphics were just ugly. So people were not that talented in making good graphics with few pixels. But there are other examples which, I think the Tomix games I mentioned are great, and or CoCoMax 2 itself, that really looks very Macintoshish. So you could do a lot of good things with a few pixels. I remember the first icons in Windows, which were only 16 by 16.
That's true. Yeah.
16 colors, and some of them were really good. So you didn't even notice that this is actually poor resolutions with few colors. So they really did good dithering and things too. That's some nice artwork. I always happy if I see some pixels.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Hometown Radio Shack.
Hi, I really enjoyed playing games at the arcade. I was wondering if you had any arcade-style game controllers for the color computer.
Well, we do sell joysticks for the CoCo.
Can you describe them?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a small push button on the side.
Do they have spring return?
Well, we also sell the deluxe joystick. It has spring return.
What's it like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a little push button on the side and one on the top. But we do sell some other brands, too.
What are they like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have plastic joystick, and there's little push buttons on the sides.
Why play games with fragile, outdated plastic controllers? Move up to professional arcade quality with the Gamester. The Gamester is the ultimate 2-button joystick controller for your color computer, Dragon or Tandy 1000. It features a genuine arcade quality joystick with 2 large arcade quality cherry switch buttons on a single surface. It sits comfortably on your lap or on your desk. Select custom furniture quality paint or stain finishes. Choose a right or left-handed configuration. And now you have the option of light up LED buttons. Find out why so many others are delighted with the Gamester. To build yours, simply reach out to Neil Blanchard by email. Neil@CoCoCrew.org. That's NEIL@CoCoCrew.org. For true arcade action, it's the Gamester.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 73 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. This month I'm going to do something different. I didn't quite have enough time to review a game because of being super busy with work and filling in editing the podcast this month. So instead of reviewing a game, I'm going to do a rant on eBay. This is brought to you by your French Canadian, because you all know the French are very passionate about things. eBay being one of them for me. I also figure this is a serious topic for us retro computer users and collectors, because most of us have used eBay to buy or sell at least one time in this hobby. A few weeks ago I learned that eBay is changing their seller program to something called managed payments. The gist of this means they will no longer allow you to use PayPal to receive your payment if you sell an item. eBay will now be collecting the payment for you in their own escrow account. It will automatically send the funds to your bank account, which you now have to link to eBay. It apparently takes 2 days for your funds to be deposited and show up in your bank account. This, however, isn't the worst part. It gets worse. In order to sign up for this forced managed payments program, you must provide them at least one of the following 3 items. Number 1, social insurance number. That's our equivalent to social security number in the USA. Number 2, a passport. And number 3, a driver's license. These are the requirements for here in Canada. I'm not 100% sure for other countries. However, I was talking to 2 different fellow Americans, and they confirmed a social security number is required to sell on eBay. Now, is it just me, or do you not think this is a bit much? Especially if we have had an active account on eBay for 2 decades, with 100% feedback. Upon further research, I read eBay is requiring this information so they can properly identify your name. Unless I'm missing something, wouldn't linking your bank account give them enough proof of your real name? Also, something else to mention. You can still use PayPal to purchase items on eBay, but not for selling. In my opinion, eBay has been making it more and more difficult for sellers. Don't even get me started about the hefty fees and terrible exchange rate they will give us converting funds from one currency to another. Now, I don't normally sell a ton of items on eBay, as I try to always sell locally or directly to the retro groups. But it was always nice to know it was there as a backup. I'm not saying I'll never sign up for this new managed payments program, but for now I'm going to hold off and think about it. Let me know your thoughts and feedback. You can be honest and say things like, "Hey Neil, you're being too paranoid," or "This is absolutely ridiculous why they need this kind of personal information." Or maybe it's time for a new auction selling platform. If you'd like to send your thoughts on this topic, hit us up at show@CoCoCrew.org or myself directly at neil@CoCoCrew.org. I brought this rant up because it is a concern for us retro collectors. If eBay alienates a lot of their sellers, we could unfortunately see less and less retro goodness to buy or bid on. Well, until next month, CoCo and Retro Forever.
New from Dicom, it's Paper Route. Deliver newspapers to your customers, but break their windows or damage their property and lose subscribers.
I'm sorry.
But earn points for breaking windows and damaging the property of non-subscribers. Avoid pedestrians,
Asking kids,
cars, and maybe even a mad dog. Paper Route requires 64K and a joystick. From Dicom.
Well, it's that time again. We have reached the end of episode 73 on the CoCo Crew Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank our host, John Linville. He was doing double duty this month, providing us with a tech segment, procuring news articles, and the CoCo History segment. Also like to thank Mike Rowan for painstakingly editing the podcast and creating those fun commercials. Big thanks goes out to Torsten Dittel for giving us some of your time to record an interview with you. Last but not least, thank you to everyone who listen and support us each month. We also really appreciate your feedback. Until next month, happy CoCoing and Retro Forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.
Dance, dance, dance. Dance, dance, dance.
CoCo. CoCo.